I need to talk about DayZ. It's a game with such a unique design philosophy in the sense that it's got so many elements that I absolutely, on the surface level, should despise. I think survival games have long been overdone, largely in part due to the fact they've been inspired by DayZ, ironically. But the general concept of arbitrary stat systems like blood levels, health, hunger bars, stamina, in my opinion, in most games, are all elements that I don't like. But DayZ, I think, is one of the rare exceptions where I think it does it right, because in its core gameplay loop, it actually makes you earn the right to maintain those bars. It's not an arbitrary system like in so many survival games where it feels like a chore to fill them up. In DayZ, getting that hunger bar stat filled back up and having a full stomach is a challenge in itself, and it's more often than not that as a player or a newer player, you die to something like hunger or sickness more than at the hands of another player. And the latter, actually, I think is what adds to the game so much and is what keeps me coming back for now over a decade. I've been playing it since early access, but throughout all of its faults, such as, poor performance, janky melee combat, and everything in between, I always find myself sporadically picking it up and giving it a few hours every once in a while, most recently, which is why I wanted to make this video. And a huge reason of that is it's the anticipation. Well, that is the loop in itself. The gameplay and the gunplay and everything in between, it isn't actually anything to write home about. It's fine, it does the job, but it's the anticipation of an interaction with another player, whether that's combative or a social interaction. You don't really know until you find out, right? But it's exploring this empty, Eastern European expanse full of countryside and ghost towns, full of 90% of the time nothing but zombies and scarce scraps of clothing and food. But there is always that small chance that you're going to run into another player who is either as scared as you or is ready to take your lights out with a swift shot to the head. That's the anticipation, and that's the thing that kept me and keeps, I'm sure, so many of you who have played the game crawling back over and over and over. As I said, I've been playing it for over a decade now, and I have so many visual, just such strong memories, being so terrified as I was only 13 at the time, probably, of holding up inside a house because I heard a single footstep, and I'm sitting there listening for any bit of sound with my revolver out, waiting by the door for someone to come in so I can defend myself and pray that I come out alive, because the game is so unforgiving. Because once you're dead, you respawn and you're back exactly where you started with nothing but a bandage and a single piece of food to your name. That's it, and the cycle begins again. So each death you have is meaningful. It does carry weight because you've got to go and start that journey all over again. And player interactions are so rare because the map is so big, but it's one of those cases where it's quality over quantity. And I can speak to that because I played on modded servers where the loot is, massively increased, so you can get kitted early and have all the gear and weaponry. And while that's fun to engage in combat, it does diminish and dilute the overall core loop because it just doesn't hold as much weight or emotional impact. And I said earlier about it either being a social or combative encounter. Usually it's one or the other, right? When you encounter another player in that game. And when it comes to the social side of things, it is a rarity, but it offers, I think, one of the most unique experiences in any game I've ever played, where some of the core systems are definitely implemented to amplify that. On top of course, a local chat system where you can, obviously talk to other players in the world who are close to you. There are elements in the game, gameplay-wise, which, I've seen on videos, and also speaking from my own personal experiences, I've never gone through in any other sort of survival game. A good example is I saw it on a YouTube video, and it did happen to me once, where someone who had the means to handcuff you, throw away the key, and then force feed you human meat. I can't think of another game which offers such a terrifyingly hilarious experience other than DayZ, but it's stuff like that which I'm so grateful for, that it allows the opportunity for those social interactions. I think, especially now, I speak about this all the time, right? But in the post 2020 era, we're in a time where social interaction in games, I did a video on friend slop, and experiences with your friends have become even so much more prevalent and sort of larger scale and more mainstream than ever before. DayZ, in a lot of ways, though it had a different approach, was almost a precursor in some capacity. You know, when you're talking about this, you know, you also had, as a result of that, had a big YouTube following. There's a YouTube, I don't even know if he still streams or makes videos, but there was a guy who used to play a lot of DayZ called Mr. Moon, who really embraced that role play element of, you know, interacting with other players and creating experiences not just with them, but for them in a lot of ways, as well as his audience on YouTube. And he ended up, you know, really growing the DayZ community, I think, as a result of that. And with that was the birth of RP servers we saw, you know, which obviously he embraced. And DayZ it has no shortage of that either if you're looking for that experience. But even just the core system, the core gameplay loop alone on a vanilla server, I think all of those elements combined, you know, though it might be rare, and, you know, these elements, these interactions with other players are so rare and infrequent, that's what makes it so magical. As I said earlier, it's that infrequency which makes it count. It's that, you know, anticipation for a single footstep or a voice or the cock of a gun when you're listening out for as you're running through, you know, this Eastern European expanse, plotting your route to try and scavenge for loot, that keeps me coming back each and every time, even though I suffer more often than not. And my death, as I played the other day, is usually extremely anticlimactic, like getting killed by a random door camper. You know, it motivates you to come back again and do it all once more. I really urge you to play it if you haven't already, because it is one of the earliest survival games, even though it started as a mod and then became its own standalone thing. You know, it is the real precursor to a lot of survival games, which, although I have a love-hate relationship nowadays, I think DayZ is one of the rare few exceptions that did and still does it right. So yeah, definitely give it a try if you haven't already. And if you have played it, of course, please feel free to share your experiences below. This is a place, as I say, to, you know, waffle about the games we love. So this is, yeah, I love making these videos for you, and I hope you love listening to me waffle about them, about all these games and experiences. Yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Have a good one.